Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everybody Matters, our Family and Friends edition. I'm Jill Catherine, the host of our chat, and this is a conversation we have every month with family of friends of those who are struggling with an eating disorder, disordered eating, or body dissatisfaction. We appreciate you tuning in, and we come to this conversation each month to bring a different topic that helps to hopefully provide some insight, some education, some awareness to what you may be going through, what your loved one might be going through. Um, Eating disorders, body dissatisfaction are complex disease and mental illness. And so what we aim to do every month is just to, bring another conversation here that hopefully can just give you something, some aspect that you can bring back to supporting your loved one. I encourage you to take what resonates with you in these conversations and leave the rest, because every single one of you has your own unique story, your own unique situation happening with your loved one. So no, chat is going to be able to address the nuances of what you might be struggling with in your family or with your friend. And so what I aim to do is just to broadly bring some themes and some awareness to various aspects of this disease that might help in your relationship to your loved one. And that's what we can do. That's what we aim to do, is just offer some little piece of insight or awareness that just shifts slightly how you're understanding this disease, how you're then engaging with your loved one. So there's a multitude of ways we can approach this, and there's constant learning and recovery from an eating disorder. Certainly doesn't happen overnight. It's a lengthy process that usually takes a couple years, that goes through various stages. And so what I want to share with you all this month is, I'm sorry, just had a little hiccup with our online video. It's funny how things are today. Okay, let me just get back into it. Technology being a little funny in this moment. This month, so we do our live chats usually about the second Wednesday of every month. And so what I want to talk to you guys this week was something that, every week we do weekly chats with those who are in recovery. And we have, in-depth conversations about, the heart and soul of what happens when we're going through recovery, of the changes that we go through, how that affects our life, where we're challenged, where we're struggling. And so one of the topics that was brought up that I thought would be really helpful to share with you guys is, we may have addressed this in some other chats as well, but this particular topic this has come up a number of times, that, those who are in recovery, right, who've been struggling with this, it is highly likely that through recovery, we start to change. Parts of ourselves that maybe we've been hiding start to come out. And parts of our personality that maybe we weren't expressing start to get expressed. And for our family and friends, sometimes it could feel like we're different, that our personalities, that we're different. For example, there's, a woman on our chat where when she was young and what her personality like, which was all sort of connected into her disorder, she was very shy and non-opinionated and, was quiet. And as she started to go through her healing and her recovery, she started to find her voice, and she started to share her opinions and express them and take up space in the room with what was on her heart and what she wanted to say and talk about. And, she's expressed how difficult that has been for her parents, and how they almost want her to be how she used to be because that's how they know her to be. And that's not the only time, I've heard that. And that even from my own experience, I've had my own experience of that, but we've had other, stories told of people on our chat where it has a lot to do with their voice. They've learned to express their voice, and their partners really struggling with them being so expressive, with starting to set boundaries that maybe they didn't set before, by starting to say, no, that's not actually what I want to do or what I like to do, or no, it's not okay if for you to speak to me that way, or whatever it may be. Then that becomes challenging for the partner to say, whoa, who's this person, right? And I get that. I get that. I know for me, when I started to really come out and let my true self be seen, a lot of the values and beliefs I had didn't line up exactly with what my parents' values and beliefs were. And it wasn't about one being right or wrong, but we were seeing the world differently. We were having different perspectives. And, before I didn't have the awareness of what my values were. I was just sort of, living in line with my folks and just going about life. So a natural and necessary part of recovery is for us to reclaim parts of ourselves that we didn't even know were there, to discover parts of ourselves, to let free, parts of ourselves. And that can have an effect on how our personality seems to be, how we become identified, or how people have grown to know us. And that's real, it's difficulty on both ends. I can imagine the difficulty it is for parents and friends to now be with someone who's a little different. And it's almost like getting to know a new person in some way. In some way. And so the challenge we've seen with those who experience this is, those in recovery, is that they feel like their loved ones and their family members and their partners really want them to, they don't want to change. They don't want to there's not room for them to be who they are today. And that there's a lot of pressure to sort of go back to who they were because they're uncomfortable now with who we've become. And I think, we always try to, in the spirit of these conversations, we always try to remove any moral judgment. There's not about right or wrong. There's enough space in the world for all of us to exist as we are. And so, part of what I do in our chats is encourage, is to bring some conversation into how that's difficult for them, and then how to really encourage those in recovery to just give time and give space and to just stay on track for what's true to us. And that over time, that it just takes time to sort of get to know people as they grow and they change. So I just want to encourage you all to just be mindful of, are you giving a room? Is there space in the relationship with your loved one to grow and change? If not, can you allow for some space? Can you encourage space? One of the things I talk about every month on these chats is to encourage dialogue as much as you can with your loved one, because the tendency is, when we're in this disease, is to isolate. It's for us to withdraw, remove, and only really come out and talk if we feel if people really get it, and also if we're invited to come out and talk about it. And so I'm always encouraging you to have a dialogue, as much as you can with your loved one. And most of that time, that dialogue is you just sharing about you too, and talk about your own challenges and talk about the struggles that you have. We just had, a woman wrote us a story about her recovery for our blog, and one of the things she said of how life-changing it was for her. When she was going through her recovery, she went into treatment, and through that recovery process, her mom, who she completely admired and respected, and who is a powerhouse, is very active and does incredible philanthropic things in the world, how her mom started to express and be vulnerable on how the struggles she would have, with her body. And this person, shared how comforting that was for her, how much that made her feel affirmed. It made her feel safe in a way. It helped her to understand, okay, it's not just her and her mom, like this person that she so admired and respected, was sharing her own insecurities, and how impactful that was and healing for her to hear that. So, it's always important, as much as you can, to be vulnerable with your loved one and to take moments of tearing down your strong walls and how perfect you look to be, and how put together and how you have it all figured out, and if you can just take those walls down and say, actually, I don't. Here are some ways I struggle. Here are some places I don't have it figured out. Here are some things that I'm learning from you. Here are some things I'm learning from other people, bringing those walls down. So that vulnerability is so important in as much, whether just so it's so important for us going through it, to experiencing you being vulnerable. It helps us to feel sort of safe in a way. So through this journey, right, there will be twists and turns your loved ones are going to take. There's going to be interests and paths that maybe were not the ideal that you had for them. And that's something we talked a lot about on our chat today, is how we, those of us who are going through this, how such a big part of our healing is to get clear on what are the ideals we hold in our mind's eye that we're trying to live up to. The ideals of body, the ideals of beauty, the ideals of health, the ideals of success, these ideals of what a job, ideals of a partner. We have all these ideals of the ideal, what it would be. And, what we have to do is sort of shift that to what's real for us, not what's ideal. Ideal is, most of us, we hold an image in our mind's eye of what's ideal based on whether we realize it or not, based on what other people think is good, based on what society, based on companies, based on what images we take in all the time. We take in all these images of success, of beauty, of health, of romance, of, dream jobs and places to live. We take in all these images, and all of a sudden, before we know it, we have this ideal in our mind's eye that's someone else's, but it's not ours. We have to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. We have to separate from that and say, actually, not what's ideal, but what's real for me. What feels good in my body? What feels good in my heart? How do I want to move through the world? How do I want to express myself? Is that ideal job actually ideal to what's real for me? Do I even want that? Is that ideal relationship what I actually really want? So that's part of our recovery process, is stripping down those ideals to what's real for me as this person that I am in this in this body, in this mind, with the heart and soul that I have, what's real for me? And then we start to create our dreams and our aspirations from there that look like us, that don't look like anything else fabricated, but look like us. So I share that with you as part of what we work through to sort of figure out, and that process, we discover new things. We discover interests we've had, or passions we've had, or paths we want to take that are more true to who we are, who we've always been, and we just weren't in touch with them. And so we change, we grow, we take twists and turns. We're at the heart, we're still the same, but how we express ourselves will start to look differently. And so, asking yourself, is there room in your relationship with your loved one for their growth? Are you holding the ideal of who you have for them in your mind's eye, and you're not seeing who's actually real today? What's actually real? Because the ideals are an illusion. They're a fabricated image we hold. They're not what's real. What's real is what's right in front of us. Is this person and who they are today. And it's questions to ask yourself. Am I holding, this vision for my loved one that makes no sense for who they actually are and who they're choosing to be today? Because we can feel that. We can sense it. We know it when that's happening. And that's a really big conflict, that makes us feel bad and sad, and it makes us feel ashamed and confused. Because ultimately, right, what we want to feel really is seen. We all want to feel seen. Who we really are, we want that to feel seen beyond all the layers, but to be seen, and particularly from the ones who know us best, which is our loved ones, which we want that, so we want to be seen by our family and our friends. So I invite you, as you're in relationship with your loved one in recovery, is just to be mindful of making room for them to grow and change, and making room for yourself to grow and change. I think one of the situations that happened in my life where I started to address and discover some different values for myself. My parents instilled some really, amazing values that I still carry with me today. And then I started to create some of my own. And those always didn't line up for them. But through the years, I could see that they were giving room for me to grow and change, that they were giving room for themselves to grow and change, to actually grow and change some of the values they were holding by realizing certain ideals weren't what's real. And so when you can see what's real, then you can focus on what we have right here today, that all the goodness we have right here today, all the health that your loved one does have right here today, all the possibility and opportunity that they have right here today. And that's what we want to encourage. We want to encourage who they are today and what's calling them today, and to move forward and to continue to express themselves and move forward in the way that they're moving forward today, right? So shifting from what's ideal to what's real, and redefining, what those moving forward steps look like, that are based into how life is unfolding today. So we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you providing room for your loved one to grow and change. And also, again, just any vulnerability that you can have with them. as they start to, there's always this expectation in recovery that, you know, it's all about us, right? Going through our therapy and figuring things out. And so it's always this sort of us working through the self. And so your willingness to share about you working through yourself helps us to feel not so alone. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next month.